Astra Travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we discussed all the crazy hidden lore in the Deepwood Memories artifact set.
There's nothing like drinking Osmanthus wine on a nice, cool summer day. We're talking about our dragon daddy, Morax Rex Lapis Zhongli, the beggar of Liyue.
The Hobo Archon.
Hobo Archon, do-do-do.
Looking for some visual gems to illustrate today's episode? Take a sip of our website, talesofteyvat.com, designed for those who share the memory, and where each episode has its own page created by Tiff, a true pillar of the Genshin community.
Oh my God. Our site also includes links to past seasons and special episodes, artist spotlights from the community for every episode, and wallpapers to download.
Finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in the future. Additionally, feel free to give us a rating on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts so other travelers can find a fun place full of lore, inappropriateness at times, and humor, maybe.
Maybe. We cannot guarantee any humor.
You might cry the whole time.
I will guarantee it, because fuck it.
Al will guarantee it. The rest of us think you might cry, and that's okay. Some people like that. But today we are not crying yet, and we are not humorous yet, because we are talking about Zhongli, the oldest playable character that we know of by age, not release. A man whose stare can scare the bejesus out of everyone, and a man who only wants to talk about Osmanthus Wine.
He owes me so much, Mora.
Has he borrowed money from you?
Yes! How do you think he gets his bamboo shoots?
Well, I thought maybe he was, you guys didn't have to pay for my contract with a pep for my soul because he just balanced it out with the money he owes you.
Oh no. I paid, but I paid it a different way.
Oh.
Take note, Al knows how to get her way when needed.
Contracts? I can get around that. There's always a loophole.
She's the new quote-unquote yaksha.
Ooh.
Yes.
So Zhongli, we first meet Zhongli when we get to Liyue, and he's introduced to us as a consultant for the Wangshan funeral parlor.
Which, can we just say, what the fuck does a consultant do at a funeral parlor? Is he consulting them, or is he a sales rep?
I think the thing is that Zhongli, his specialty is special burials. So he's known to do all the adeptal burials.
Okay.
So where I think Hu Tao is, honestly, Hu Tao's the director, owner, salesperson, coupon creator, marketer, and he just handles special funerals.
He brings in high caliber clients.
And he's a stickler for tradition. So he wasn't the one who wrote the customs of Liyue, but he basically penned it.
And because Zhongli is so traditional, he makes sure that if an adepti is getting buried, they have everything done to the T. He does not cut corners. And we can see that when we help him plan his own funeral during the Archon Quest, because that must have been a weird little thing he had to do.
I think he enjoyed it.
He's very ceremonial.
And even in his attire. And I believe in China, which Liyue is based off of, from our understanding, those who have very long ponytails like he does, that's a very big sign of being a distinguished person.
A distinguished gentleman.
Social standing.
High social standing.
And his outfit, too. I feel like there's a comment or two when people are talking about him that's he's dressed so nice for a funeral parlor consultant.
And I believe a yaksha made him that suit that he is wearing as well.
Yes.
The gay one.
Bozacious.
The best one?
Not bozacious.
It wasn't bozacious. I just think it would be funny if it was the bodacious.
The booty one. It was the one that was celebrated this year in Lantern, right? The yellow yaksha.
Yeah.
The Geo Yaksha.
It's like Power Rangers.
Minogius.
Yes, it was Capisas Minogius.
Anyway, so when we first meet Zhongli, that's how we're introduced to him, as this consultant at this funeral parlor. And then we hop into the Archon Quest, where we walk into the death of Rex Lapis.
He just, threw himself down and was like, let's go out with a bang, shall we?
Well, you want to know something really fun? So, travelers, I'm assuming everyone knows that that wasn't actually Rex Lapis and that Zhongli is the Geo Archon. So he throws, like, it almost seems like a dragon stuffed animal onto the floor and is like, oh no, the Archon is dead.
And they call it an exuvia, right?
Yes.
Which isn't that the word for like when a snake molts its skin?
Yes.
And that's like the leftovers. So he just sort of ripped a layer of his skin off.
Well, I feel like he kept saying that to us as a hint that he was the Archon, but no one got it in the moment. No one was sitting there going, oh, wait a second. A shed skin. Maybe he's not dead.
No one knows what exuvia means.
No. Al, did you know?
Not at the time.
I didn't know.
Well, Al's the reptile queen, so...
Well, so I didn't know at the time, and here's the thing. I was watching Snake Discovery. They were doing art, basically. So you take exuvia, snake skin, and they were making like cute little necklaces out of it. I'm like, oh my god, that's so cute. It's a cute little memory of your snake. And then they said, yeah, you can make exuvia necklaces. And I'm like, wait a minute. Where have I heard this before?
So are you saying that Zhongli has made necklaces out of his skin for like Zhao and Childe, maybe?
Probably.
I hope so. He's like, I made this. And he's not even going to tell them that, like, you know what? That came off my body.
He's not going to tell them what part of the body.
That's what's inside all the Geovisions.
Mhm.
There's a TikToker who you can send your manly products and they will make jewelry out of it.
It's wild.
So in case you've ever
Your
been
manly
interested
products.
Yeah, I didn't want to say your spunk.
Your milk,
Oh.
Brandon.
Your baby snot.
I get it. You can stop.
Your goo.
Yeah.
No. Oh God, this is just getting worse.
But you can so she'll make jewelry out of that. And when somebody compliments you, you can be like, thanks.
Thanks,
I
it's my
made it
jizz.
yeah.
But yeah, so Zhongli, Rex Lapis dies, and of course we get accused of it, because when aren't we accused of doing something we didn't do?
It's our first day in Liyue Harbor.
I don't know. There's some shady shit though. Like for them
There
to
is some
just-
shady shit. But we are very conveniently at the altar when he dies.
but which also would have meant that we couldn't have killed him up in the air.
Well, I think the assumption was he came down to say hi to us, and we yeeted him.
And we just
We're like, who the fuck are you?
boom.
So
It's like a pep sends the regards. Whoosh.
we're like, no, Nuvalette sends his regards. Mother.
He didn't know at the time.
Not yet. Nuvalette had an idea that he didn't like Zhongli. He just didn't know why.
Yeah.
And that's at the point too where we meet Childe, and we start to learn that Childe is Zhongli's wallet when Hu Tao isn't around, and that Childe pays for anything, and these two are like really good friends. But here's the kicker: Childe never knew that Zhongli was an Archon. He didn't even have an inkling. He thought maybe he was like an Adepti or something, but he never thought he'd be the Archon.
Nah. He just wanted to stuff him with Mora, if you know what I mean.
Oh no. So we end up going on all these quests for Zhongli to help him find things for his funeral, because like we said, he's a very ceremonial, traditional guy, and if anyone's gonna get an accurate funeral, it's himself. I wonder if he like went to his funeral and was like, how many people attended? He was like looking for Kaching, you know. He was like, did Ganyu come?
Well, I feel like it was important to him to make it convincing, because he really wanted to make sure that everyone was going to be okay with him being gone. Because, you know, it was like he was like testing the waters to make sure like my babies are going to survive on their own
Mm.
Exactly.
now that I'm stepping away.
Which also, you know, at the end of the Archon line, when we found out that this was all just like a Zhongli experiment in the end, it kind of left a sour taste in my mouth for a little bit. I was like, oh, so you weren't going to do anything about Osile, and you knew Child's plan this whole time, and like you pretended to be his friend. Like, I don't know. There was just a lot of like weird stuff. And like you just said too, his body just happening to fall while we're there. Did Zhongli set us up because he knew we were the traveler? It's also weird that, of course, we get to town and all this is happening, you know? Like Venti maybe called ahead and was like, "You're gonna do it now."
Like when Jean and Lisa are in Jean's office, like, "Hey, the traveler's coming."
Wasn't this an annual thing?
Yeah.
Because I remember when we talked to Venti at the end of the Mondstadt quest, he's like, doesn't he say something like, "Oh, Liyue's about to have their yearly whatever, you should get over there so you can see it."
Yeah.
Yes. So we talked about this in our Kaching episode. Every year they do a celebration, not celebration, they do this thing where like Rex Lapis comes down and he talks to the people and they like make deals and they, you know, go back and forth with their contract with him and what he's gonna do and what he's not gonna do. That's where Kaching stood up to him and was like, "I don't like the way you handle things." And he was like,
He's like, "Oh, that's so cute."
he's like, "Good thing I'm not going to be here next year for this."
He's like, "I don't want to descend anymore." Maybe he was just like, he wanted a better name because Rite of Dissension is also kind of boring.
It is a boring name.
I'm more fabulous than this.
I mean, he has a lot of names though.
Yeah.
Which, like, you know,
Mhm.
his event having a boring name shouldn't matter as much when he has 8 titles. The Liyue Archon, the God of Contracts, the God of History, the Lord of Rocks, the Groundbreaker, the Warrior God, Rex Lapis, Morax, and now Zhongli.
He's also the god of wealth and prosperity and the god of war.
And Dad to Zhao.
And yes, and dad. Or daddy to child.
Daddy to... I have a lot to say about the Child Zhongli relationship, no matter how you look at it. Because Childe is like, I feel like he owes me one, is kind of Childe's thought. But Childe is like, I want to fight him. And we're like, bro, you just found out he's the Liyue Archon. You want to fight him? He's like, yeah, why not? Because he's dumb, as much as I love him. And then Zhongli is like, that guy's a rascal. And I'm like, he's a rascal. You knew the whole time and you befriended him. Who is the true rascal here? Like, ugh, it just gets me so mad.
He knew where the money was coming from.
That's the thing, right?
He is a rascal. Excuse me, Childe is a rascal. That's a very kind word to use for Childe.
He's a pizza rat.
I didn't say that he wasn't a rascal. I'm saying that for Zhongli to take advantage of someone for so long and then call them a rascal.
Take advantage of?
Yes.
What are you talking about? Take advantage of?
All the stuff that he constantly bought Zhongli.
But he was plotting to destroy the whole city.
Yeah, but Zhongli also knew that the whole time because he had to deal with Signora.
But then that's like Zhongli being like, I'm playing you. You think you're playing me, but I'm playing you. So how is that taking advantage of him?
I just feel like that when you force someone to spend money on you, when you're not going to uphold a relationship at all.
I get that, but like, isn't all of Childe's money just from the Northland Bank?
That's unspecified. I would
Okay.
assume so, but it's
Yeah.
never like outright stated. I don't think Childe comes from a wealthy family, but we also don't know what your paycheck looks like when you're a harbinger. I mean, do
Yeah,
they get paid bi-weekly, monthly? What's the salary?
Do they get a stipend when they travel?
Yeah, does he get gas money back?
And we can go and ask Victor.
Victor is like too depressed to talk to us. It's so funny you bring him up though. I literally just wrote about him in like a little short I wrote.
I love Victor, and I really wish he would go to Fontaine. For anybody who doesn't know, Victor is a Fatui that is in the beginning of the game. When you first start, he is hanging out in the church in Mondstadt, and there's a daily that you could speak with him. And then after you do a whole lot of dallying with him and a whole lot of stuff with the kid that's involved there, eventually, once Sumeru was out, he goes over to Sumeru, and now he's standing near the Adventurers Guild, very depressed that he's in Sumeru. And you can go still talk to him, and he's sad. He's sad he misses his buddy.
The little girl, yeah, it's like his best friend. He's like, should I write her a letter?
It's like, I may have gained a friend for the first time in his life.
Yeah.
And he was such a bitch in Mondstadt.
He was!
Oh, yeah, he was.
And does he say he's working specifically for like Pantalone or something like that?
No, I don't remember.
He's like, I'm getting called on a project for someone.
I believe it's Pusinella.
That's the one that looks like Igor from Persona 5.
Yes. Yeah.
That's Childe's like mentor in the Harbingers.
AKA Vanessa's boyfriend.
No, Tiff's boyfriend.
Tiff's boyfriend.
Yes. I was like, wait, who's my boyfriend? Yes, he is my boyfriend. He's like the Tales from the Crypt version of the Monopoly Man.
You just reminded me of Genshin's version of the penguin.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, listen, that guy is also a rascal because there's this suggestion that from Scaramouche, when you get him, like Wanderer, I should say, one of his voice lines is about him, and he basically is like suggesting that he's pretending to watch after Childe's family and stuff while he's gone. Almost saying like, he has your family in the palm of his hands if you ever fuck up, Childe. Scary stuff, man. Don't trust anyone.
Especially the Fatui.
I feel like, if anything, despite his rascalness, Childe is the one harbinger I might trust the most.
Not Linny?
They're not harbingers.
No, they're just Fatui.
I trust Fremine. Linny, it depends on the hour.
Linny will be a harbinger.
What about the knave?
No, I don't like her.
Yeah, she hates her.
I hate her.
With like a passion.
Anyway, back to Zhongli, who has had to deal with 2 harbingers in his nation, may I remind you, because he ends up writing out a contract with Signora. Long story short, we prep a funeral for the snake skin. Childe tries to use Osile, an actual water snake, basically, to kill everyone in Liyue Harbor, using this seal that he finds from the tea house that Yelan takes over. And he unlocks Osile, who is underneath Gunyun Stone Forest because of Zhongli and his like giant stone pillars that he smashed into the ground during the Archon War. And Osile comes and attacks, and we use the Jade Chamber and we smush it into the ocean. And we save the day, and they're like, yay, we don't need the Adepti to rule the harbor. We don't need a god. The humans got it. And then we head over to Northland Bank, and we find out that Zhongli and Signora have been in cahoots. So my question here is, why do you think he actually believed that Signora would follow his contract?
Yeah, his contract was with the Tsaritsa. So
Oh, okay.
and he calls it the contract to end all contracts, but we don't know what exactly the trade-off is, but he alludes to the fact that it's something really big, that like he understands like the gravity of like giving away his gnosis, and so he kind of hints that he did it for a really good and big reason, but we don't know what that reason is. So I'm assuming that he was okay with dealing with Signora just because she was there on behalf of the Tsaritsa, and he knows that if she pissed the Tsaritsa off, she was probably in big trouble.
Yeah, definitely. That makes more sense. I didn't remember that it was the Tsaritsa. But also, you mentioned that it's the contract to end all contracts. Well, clearly it hasn't ended any contracts because he still can't tell us anything about Conria.
Well, I think he just meant like the ultimate contract, like the big contract that sort of will overshadow any other contract I've ever made. Maybe like a world altering contract, you know what I mean?
Who do you think his contract is with about Conria?
Yeah, because he does say that he can't talk about Conria with us because of a contract.
Yeah.
And I think that's with Celestia, but I think with him holding contracts in such regard, and the fact that, you know, he had a contract with the people of Liyue to protect Liyue, and at a certain point, I think he says, I can't remember when he says it, but that contract has been fulfilled, and now the humans can take over because he's no longer needed. They can take care of themselves. And maybe he can't say anything about Conria because something in that contract has not been fulfilled yet, where he cannot.
I just always assumed it was the contract with the primordial one.
Yeah.
Because he is an archon, so he does have a celestial, you know, a divine seat of Celestia, and the primordial one / heavenly principles seems to be like the boss of the gods, or at least of the 7.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that's how I always took it. And we're assuming that the primordial one or the heavenly principles is what cursed Conria. So I could see anything about Conria being deemed forbidden knowledge for the gods. Like, don't discuss it with the people, you know, but I don't know.
I feel like it could also be with like the other archons, or it could be with someone who survived Conria. I know that we've learned a lot that the people who were pure-blooded Conrian became immortal. That's how we got Piero. So it's also like there could be another type of contract like that.
Yeah, it could be like maybe the king of Conria is still alive and the contract's with that person. It's
also frustrating though, because Zhongli is one of the only people in this game that we've met that would be able to tell us about Conria. Because Venti didn't go to Conria. He fought Durin. He was called to Conria, but I assume he never made it because he fought Durin and Duvall and got hurt and all that jazz. We know that A made it to Conria for like 5 minutes after her sister had already died.
She didn't give a shit about anything else at that point.
Right. Farina was never there. Miss Human. And we don't know yet about like Natlon or anything. And to be honest, because of Zhongli's contract, he's never even told us if he was at Conria.
Yeah.
We assume so.
That's actually a very good point. We have no idea if he actually answered that call either. We know his involvement and he speaks a lot about the Archon War, but never really about anything about Conria. So it could be really vast of a contract.
It's like a good assumption, of course, that he was probably there because you had Bosacious,
The Yaksha.
you had Bosacious and Yelan's ancestor and all them over fighting the monsters in the chasm.
Well, maybe it was during the Cataclysm that he quote unquote signed the contract about Conria.
And then he never made it to Conria.
Or maybe he was there
and signed the contract.
That's when he like signed a contract to never talk about what happened.
Maybe he locked the door. That was like part of it.
Maybe. I gotta tell you. Oh, I didn't even mention it earlier. Ruka Devada never made it to Conria. Nahida never made it.
Nahida would have her memory though, right? Or no?
Yes.
Because she thinks she was.
Wasn't Nahida being born during the Cataclysm?
Oh yeah, I guess she was still born. It's just that she has no memory of the one before. Because they attribute stuff that was to Ruka Devada to Nahida after the
Irminsul switch. And so we know that of all the Archons that we met, we can tell you that only one of them for sure made it to Conria, and it was for 10 minutes after her sister died. Like, she missed the fight. She openly admits that she missed the action.
And she only went because of Makoto. So.
Yeah, she went to try to save her.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
There was a little too much glee in that.
And R.I.P. Ajiria, too.
Yes.
She's a poodle.
Oh, our sweet little puddle.
Sweet little puddle. This is a cute little puddle.
And then Focalors was born, and she locked herself in a mirror, basically, and made a Oceanid turned human into a fake god who was immortal, who now just lives her life eating mac and cheese and directing movies.
Yep.
The dream, honestly.
Seriously. Mm-hmm.
But outside of the Archon Quest, we know that Zhongli gets 2 story quests, which is more than Venti, but not more than A.
Is it a competition?
Yes.
Not that you're keeping score.
Yeah.
Does Farina have a story quest?
Yeah.
So Farina has one, Nahida has one, and then so everyone has one except for A and Zhongli. I feel like that's a little bullshitty.
Yeah, they really should give him another one. I'm sure they will at some point.
And before we jump into Zhongli's story quests, since I brought up Venti, I'm going to bring him up more. Zhongli and Venti are like the funniest little friends. Like, I love them together.
Yeah, they're like a duo. They give like good, like the odd couple kind of vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the serious one and then like the drunk goofball.
Who could be serious when needed.
Yeah, who would, I'm sure, can like pull the emotion out of the serious one.
We see them in a few different instances in game 2, including Lantern Rite, when we had that one really great additional video, the add-on to the cutscene. We actually see Venti and Zhongli, and then we see the other ones with them too, but like there's a little extra with them.
Oh, with A and Nahida, right?
Yeah, they go to have their little drinks at a table.
Well, even in the one Lantern Rite where Hu Tao invites us over for dinner, and it's Zhongli and Zhao to start with, who are trying to pretend like they've never met, while Shangyu and fangirls over Zhao. And then all of a sudden there's a breeze, and both Zhongli and Zhao are like, fuck.
Yeah.
Venti's here. And then we're like, oh, Venti! And they're all pretending to not know each other again, while praising each other.
I believe that's all the same Lantern Rite.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. It was a good one.
Yeah. And we didn't get a video this year, which was sad. But we also know that Venti, I think it was like right after the Archon War when they all got their gnostises and everything. Venti like took a hop, skip, and a jump over to Liyue to visit with Zhongli. And Zhongli was like, oh God, what does this guy want? And then he realized that he just wanted to be friends and talk. And so they split wine together. And it inspired them to start having like, I don't know if they were monthly or annual, but regular meetings with all the Archons in Liyue where they would drink wine together.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cute.
Yeah. And he actually, when Venti arrived, he was actually like, oh no, something bad is happening. Like the other Archon is here to like warn me of something or to like get, prepare me for some terrible event that's going to happen. And then Venti's like, here's some wine.
I gotta tell you, if I saw a bard walking into my city, I'd be scared too.
You would love it.
I would fucking love it. You're so right.
Especially if he came in his slutty outfit.
Oh my God, I'd be like, get out of my way. He's all mine. Sorry, that was just so stupid. But Venti and Zhongli definitely still have that like odd couple vibe too that Brandon just mentioned. I think Zhongli's voice line about Venti is something along the lines of like, oh, that drunkard's drunk again and he got you drunk. I'm gonna go make you a tea, but it's gonna take 6 hours, so just stay put. I'm like, I'm gonna be sober in 6 hours. Before that tea steeps.
I love that line because it sort of shows you like Zhongli has lived so old that he doesn't understand how long 6 hours is to a normal person.
Yeah.
Like don't worry, it'll only take 6 hours.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. You're fine.
I also wonder if Osmanthus Wine gets you so drunk that you would still need that tea in 6 hours. Like, like his experience with the wine.
Oh no, it wouldn't be Osmanthus, would it? It would be whatever cheap stuff Venti brought from
Well, no, he would bring his best wine. Venti says he has like a bottle of wine that he has to bring over too, I think, at one point. I'm like, all right, Venti, we get it. And Venti saved Zhongli's son's life. Let's not forget.
True.
But we do have 2 Zhongli story quests.
We do.
I liked both of them. I think the first one made me sadder than the second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first one is the one that is about the salt god Havria, right?
You mean the salt god McDonald's? Because there's so much salt on my fries.
Oh. And the second one was the one about Ajdaha.
Yeah, so the first was about Havria, and it starts out in kind of the funniest little quippy way. And that's that we run into Zhongli, who's like having lunch with a bunch of archaeologists, and they're talking about the first Mora. And no matter what they say, they just keep saying that Zhongli doesn't know what he's talking about, and that he's obviously wrong about the whereabouts of the first Mora. And that, he could just be crazy and making shit up, basically. And it's just so funny because we're like, yeah, he has no idea. I don't know why. I get such a kick out of it, too. Of those archaeologists, there's a couple old dudes, and then there's this younger woman who kind of takes him aside and is like, hey, I can tell that you're not all like, sunshine and daisies when it comes to Rex Lapis. Maybe I can talk to you about something over here. Basically, she says like she has her doubts on things that are said. And if she says some of the things she's going to say in front of certain company, people are going to get pissed.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like she's just like, I'm going to talk shit and I don't need anybody else hearing. But then a Fatui comes up and he's like, all right, deal. And he hires Zhongli through the Wangsheng funeral parlor because Hu Tao's up for a dime anywhere she can get it. He hires Zhongli as an archaeologist to help him find the relics because this is right after that the Jade Chamber went throttling into the water and stuff has kind of been brought up to the surface. So we head over to Gunyan Stone Forest to kind of look for it.
I love the idea that they're like, hey, the Jade Chamber crashed. How much of Ningguang's money do you think we can find?
That's all in her hangout quest.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's just a whole bunch of dead gods over in Gunyan Stone Forest, and Zhongli.
Wait, there's a whole bunch? I thought there was just one.
Yeah, Zhongli tells us that Rex Lapis took these stone spikes and threw them into that area to like basically cage Osile, and that's where like their beef kind of happened. But he later on talks about how it's actually over at the end where he talks about that's the place where all the like the other gods that he slayed, they might not have necessarily died there, but he put their shit there.
I love that.
Oh, wow.
He yeeted the fuck.
That's the most toxic Fortnite thing anyone in Genshin has ever done.
He makes like a little burial ground out of it.
He gets all the way up to Mount Tianheng and is like, call me.
He punts them.
Yeah, I mean, he could probably throw them that far. I mean, the man took a bunch of rocks and threw them and made a whole freaking stone forest.
Do you think that means that like Zhongli can get big like Ant-Man can? Like, do you think he can grow?
Yes, I do.
That's terrifying. Can they all do that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know that for sure, but they sort of imply it because if you remember that cutscene that tells the story of Guoba becoming Guoba, they talk about how like Guoba was this big mighty god, and that in order to help the people of the Guili Plains, he would make like multiple little mini copies of himself to run around from house to house and help everyone cook, that were like not even as tall as a regular person. But they like the images, like the imagery that they show, he's like towering like above, and then you see like these little teeny tiny versions of him running around.
Which that's adorable.
So are you telling me that Zhongli can spawn?
Could make like, yeah, could like take the form of like a bunch of little mini Zhongli.
I mean, he always came down as a dragon.
I think they can take that form, like split themselves into little multiples.
In the Rite of Descension, he comes down as not as Zhongli, comes down as the dragon.
Ooh.
Is Dotori a god? Is that why he could do that?
Stop it. I don't give that man any more dignity that he deserves, which is none.
You want to know what I thought about during the like little mini Zhonglis? Do you remember that episode of Doctor Who where they're taking the diet pills and like they're getting skinnier and it's just them shitting out fat and they turn into little cute things, and then it goes on the news of like the entire population of America has disappeared.
That's a classic episode.
That's what I imagine. And then when Zhongli wants to get, back to himself, they just all like Power Rangers it on.
So like Transformers.
Maybe all the gods can like transform in different ways. Like Zhongli might have actually thrown those spikes down while he was a giant dragon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He may have.
Insane. But let's go back to archaeology and the salt god.
Well, the funny part is, so now we're at Gunyan Stone Forest and we're looking for all these relics, and it's starting to become evident that these two people are sus, like that the one guy who's Fatui isn't actually an archaeological researcher from Chesnaya, and that the woman isn't an archaeologist, that the renowned, like she knows nothing. So they find a relic and they're like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And he's like, yes, that is a teacup, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, it must be worth a lot of money. He's like, well, to Ningguang, because it's hers.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
even if they were even if they're just pretending, they're not even treating anything with care.
Yeah, they're not wearing gloves or anything.
And that was the very first thing I'm like, it's not just that, oh, it's a teacup. I mean, because pottery is a fun thing in archaeology. I know many professors who fight over Western indigenous pottery versus Eastern indigenous pottery. But the fact that they said, this could be worth a lot, this could get us a lot of money. No archaeologist is thinking that. Not one fucker is like, ooh, money. You know what we call that? A treasure hunter.
And we know a lot of treasure hunters in this game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to spoil you or anything, but he's a treasure hunter.
Oh!
What? I never would have known.
Who could have foreseen this outcome?
They're acting sus because they are sus.
All you need is Xing Shou to come over and point a finger at them.
Guilty.
And the woman who is Wan Yun, I don't think I said her name, and the Fatui is Clement. She wants to learn a lot more about the god of salt. And along with that, and the relics that they're finding in Gunyun being Ningguang's personal effects, they head on over to Saltore. And he promises to bring them into the ruin, and it's sealed and stuff like that.
I love the idea that Zhongli is with them the entire time, like, this fucker's trying to make money off my things. Like, these are my friends. Leave them alone. But he's like, yes, bring me to the treasure.
Yeah. So now Zhongli is he's sus to them, and he probably already knows what the hell's going on too. While he brings us down into the ruin, gets us access. He makes a contract with them because that's his thing. And he basically says like, okay, the way we're gonna do this, because you're both being dicks, is we're gonna go 1-to-1. You can claim one relic, the next one we find, the next one gets it, and then back and forth. And then he's like, and to make it fair, I'm not taking anything. And Travelers like, me neither. And Paimon gets a little pissed.
What is this, white elephant?
Yeah, basically. So we continue into the ruin, and they have to kind of abide by these rules. That's the only way that he's going to help them. The first thing we come across is this bottomless salt chalice. that just has like salt just kind of like almost like regenerating in it. Of course, these two fight over it and they're like, haha, contract. And Clement gets it. And they're like, okay, that's his. Next one goes to Wanyan. So we continue on and we find the next one, which is a measuring stick. And Zhongli goes on to explain that this measuring stick, the deeper you pierce it into the earth, the more salt comes out.
Wait, what? The deeper you what?
The deeper you pierce the measuring stick into the ground, more salt will come out of the ground.
Because that's how the Earth's crust works.
It's how it works in Saltore, apparently.
Brandon was like, I just want to make sure I heard you.
Yeah.
right."
Uh-huh.
That's also how it works in Detroit. Thank you very much. The largest salt mines in North America.
I didn't hear the ground. I thought you said put the measuring stick in you. The more salt comes out. I was like, wait.
You were like, I missed this part of the game.
Yeah.
Brandon's like, is there an R-rated
Yeah.
version I'm not aware of? I know we talk about
That's
it.
in
Like, there's
Tibet.
one.
Genshin After Dark.
Tibet.
Well, so now Clement is like pissed because he's like, wait, that's going to be more money than my salt chalice. And he's like, fuck that shit. I'm taking it.
I can't. No one can follow the rules.
Yeah. So Zhongli goes, are you breaking the contract? And he's like, yeah, I am. And Zhongli's like, you know, that means that you need to suffer the wrath of the rock. And he says it in like this, in a voice I can't even try to make.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah.
The Rock. Just gonna fist you with a whole thing of rocks.
Mm-hmm.
So Clement's like, yeah, that I'm fine with that. I'm gonna fight you. Like, I'm not from Liyue. I shouldn't even have to deal with this. So Zhongli kicks his ass so much that he's just like, all right, here's the stuff. I'm leaving. And he gets kicked out and he's not allowed to play in our game anymore. He has to go home.
What a bad reindeer.
So as this like then continues, like Zhongli's like, well, I kind of know that both of you aren't here for the proper reasons anyway. And Wanyan says, like, you know, I fess up. I'm not a renowned archaeologist. I'm actually of the lineage of the people who followed the god of salt. And if you, because why not? She works in the salt industry in Liyue.
Which, like, of course, just the salt industry.
I mean, it is a mineral.
Now, did she seek that job out or was it a coincidence?
I have a feeling that it was implied that the people who are of this lineage just happen to be salt fans.
Like they're just naturally drawn to it. I wonder if they all have really high blood pressure.
Oh, that is a good point.
The way she reacts in this quest, I would believe so. Or they're part deer because they like salt.
I wonder how many times I got to go see Baiju for some blood pressure medicine.
Chong Chong's doing a lot of sucking out of the sugar,
Oh,
the
Jesus.
salts.
Is that along with the measuring stick?
Oh, Lord.
So anyway, I digress.
Meanwhile, in Tibet.
So she gets really pissed, like Al was saying, like she's very worked up and she's just like, during the Archon War, Morax killed our god out of envy for her power and all of our people. And then it left us alone in the world and it's all his fault and he's a terrible god. And I need to prove that it was all Morax's fault and that there's blood on his hands. And Zhongli, of course, just kind of like groans and goes, all right, like, I'll keep telling you stuff if you want to. So they continue moving on and they find a broken sword. It's up on a mantle, so it's obviously the goddess salt. It's like it's important. It's in two pieces. And she's like, oh my God, this is going to help me prove it. I'm going to mend it. I'm going to be able to find all this stuff out. And Zhongli is like, no, no, no. I told you, one piece per claim. And I think like Paimon's even like, dude, there's nobody else to do it with. Like, she's just, why not just give it to her? And he's like, that's a part of the contract. You only get one. She goes on to say, proving that my god was murdered is more important. I'm going to break this contract. I don't want anything to do with it. So, of course, he says, you must suffer the wrath of the rock. And we're like, really? You're going to fight her? And he's like, no. He's like, your punishment is I'm going to tell you the truth, which is like, mic drop there. Like, what do you mean? Like, you were supposed to be telling me the truth the whole time anyway.
Yeah, literally, Zhongli. This is why he's a rascal.
It's like we were telling the truth. It just we hadn't gotten to the end yet.
Yeah. So he goes on to say, well, you know, Havria, she was not as powerful as you think. She was actually very small and weak, and she yielded to all the other gods during the Archon War. She was like, it is better if I keep my people safe and don't actually fight because I'm not going to be able to win and they're going to die. So she basically just gave in and said, I'm never going to have a seat at the Seven, so whatever.
Yeah, she was very gentle. She was like too gentle for war.
Yeah. So, she thought she was actually doing the best by her people, really, by not fighting.
Yeah.
Not by this chick.
Yeah. But because this Archon War went on for so long, she had to keep making all these concessions to all of these other gods that really they ended up with this one little place, which is assumed to be Saltore as their little haven. Like they had nowhere else to go. They didn't have anything. And she just giving it up.
It makes me think of the Hunger Games, like the Archon War is the Hunger Games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Truly.
And like Havria's like, I'm just going to find a place to hide.
She was literally PETA, finding like a place to hide, painting herself.
Yeah.
Just like turning into a salt lick. The deer will only find me.
I'm a salt lamp, guys. Leave me alone.
So now, like, she ended up, they didn't even have blades if they needed to fight. That was kind of like, there was nothing. Well, I guess there was one blade left, but they didn't have like an army anymore. Like they were just very decimated. So their people knew that she wasn't going to make it. And they said, why have her go through the agony of going through all of this and losing and basically all these gods taking everything from her? It'll be better off if we just put her out of her misery. It was just so terrible. Like her people were just like, you know what? She's going to die anyway. So let's just kill her.
They like uprose against her.
Yeah. They made a plan and a pact to kill her, to just end it for her.
Yeah, it's like they were so immersed in like the brutality of the Archon War. They were just like, she's too weak and we're going to end up getting screwed over by some other god. I wonder if they all just planned to actually go, follow a different god. It's so gross because they're like, we want to be winners, not losers like Havria. So let's kill her.
Yeah, we don't actually know what more of their plan was outside of just like making it easier on her. Because it's not like they said, well, then we're going to all drink the Kool-Aid either. They were just like, let's just end it for her. And at this point, we're kind of like in the part of the ruin where we see basically in the center of it is like a giant pile of salt. And out, it looks like there was an explosion. And then there's all these like mummified salt people as if they were fleeing.
It's like Pompeii.
Yes, exactly.
Pompeii. And it also just going through this entire thing. I'm like, Indiana Jones, giant salt rock.
Yep.
What's happening?
It turns out that this is the place where they killed her. And Zhongli says, no matter how weak a god, when their life is ended, that has to exude out and has to go to other places. So it pushed out and it killed the people who were in the vicinity. They were turned into these salt statues, basically.
Plot twist.
Ha ha.
It's karma.
So there were some people, though, who did escape, and one can assume that were just on the outskirts or not in there at the time. So those people actually went and sought refuge in Liyue under Morax, and he took them in. And that's the little group that this Wanyan is actually from.
And then they decided that they weren't going to tell the truth and they're going to really make everyone get heated for no reason.
Yes. But then so now there's all this whole little group of people over here who are the descendants and stuff. And they go, we must be cursed because shit's not working out well for them. While they took refuge, they're still refugees. This is not a pretty life for them. So they're like, we need to show Havria that, we're sorry and we still believe in her. And so like these descendants, it doesn't really say how far apart of a time, it's just that they are descendants, go back to Saltore and they break the sword that was used to kill her in hopes that it would appease her and not make her angry at them anymore and stop cursing them. Zhongli goes on to say kind of to put that nice little nicety onto it of he's like, she never would have done that to her people. No matter what, they killed her, she still would have blessed them. That wasn't her person.
Right.
So he still paints this wonderful light of her, even with that. But, obviously Wanyan's devastated. Everything she's known her whole life is out the door. And she's made this contract with this dude and she has to believe him at this point,
Yeah.
I feel like Havria has one of the saddest stories of anyone in this game.
Yeah.
Really, seriously does. So we go back to Gonyan Stone Forest with Zhongli, and this is actually the point where he ends up telling us that, there is a lot of stuff buried there because he's going to take the salt chalice and the salt ruler because Liyue doesn't belong to the Archon anymore. It belongs to the people and they don't deserve to have these things. It was from the Archon or from a god. So he takes it and yeets it into the water to be in the relics basically with all of the other god stuff. And that's when he tells us that he killed a lot of gods at the time. Like he had to. But then he also goes on to some like little wishy-washy stuff where he's like, our history needs to be recorded. And the only one who could do that is you, because you're going to go to another world and Teyvat will live on in another world. Like almost, it was very like Land of Fantasia from the Neverending Story, where they're like, you have to bring back our world from this little pebble.
I do have a theory on that, and it kind of goes with the Irminsul reset stuff. We can talk about that a little later.
Wait, what exactly did Zhongli throw in the water?
He threw in the salt chalice and the salt ruler.
Okay, and then doesn't he say something like this will be like a homecoming for her?
Yeah, she's going to be like with all the other dead gods.
So I just wanted to point out that Zhongling has this voice line about Zhongli that sort of ties in with this, because she's like having him try one of her dishes and he's giving her advice about what to do to it. And he advises her to use sea salt extracted from the shallow seas of Guyun Stone Forest in one of her dishes because it'll give it a greater depth of flavor. So it made me wonder if Havria was maybe born around that area. You know what I mean? Like, why would it be a homecoming for her things to go in that area? But if that area is very salty, then maybe she was born there. Maybe she comes from that region.
Yeah.
That is such a small detail, Brandon. I am like, that is amazing.
I wonder if, and I may not have paid attention to it, if they said where those refugees went in Liyue. Because if they're also a part of the salt mining industry, I wonder if it's also around the same region.
You would think that the salt industry would be mining salt where she died because there's so much salt there. But clearly they're not.
It was sealed. Nobody could get in.
You're right. And I'm sure she's not going to tell anyone about that. So where are they mining salt? Is it in the chasm or is it in the water? We don't really know.
Yeah, good question.
We'll just walk around and see if anybody has a package of Morton salt with a little kid.
If you just meet a Morton, you're like, hey.
Yeah. Are you the salt people?
And his brother Malden. Anyway, Al, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to finish that thought about the area.
A lot of Zhongli and his kind of personality comes with history and tradition and the importance of sustaining and maintaining those. And we've talked a lot about erosion. And we know, since Zhongli is one of the oldest archons, he has a significant amount of erosion. And even though he is still affected by the Irminsul resets, perhaps he kind of knows, due to his erosion, that things aren't necessarily staying. Like, history has been changed. And he has a voice line within that quest where he states, because we are the traveler, we can take the memories and take the history of Teyvat somewhere else, unaffected by Irminsul, because even history written in stone will disappear.
He definitely knows that something's going on with Irminsul.
But it's funny, in the same breath, he's basically... Well, it's not really the same breath. I think it's going to be like the next story quest. But he basically tells Traveler, you need to know our history to be able to do this because it's going to be gone and I'm going to lose my mind also. But then is like, but don't ask me anything about this one period of time that altered all of Teyvat.
That matters so much to you.
Yeah.
Don't ask me about things that matter. I felt so bad for Zhongli because you could kind of tell that he has a lot of regrets about what he did in his past.
Yeah.
You know, almost like he was like a crazy 19-year-old who went to jail and stuff like that. You know, like you could tell he's reflected and that he wishes he didn't hurt as many people, and it was like kind of nice for him to clear his name about at least one person.
Yeah, and I think he also felt really bad having to tell her the truth. And like there's at one point I think Traveler and Paimon say like to him like, you know, are you sure you're going to like tell her all this? He's like, I said it was a punishment. He's like, it's not going to be good. She still needs to suffer the wrath of the rock for breaking the contract.
I wonder what that was like going home that night.
Of what, the suffering the wrath of the rock?
No, like after finding out that truth and she goes home to like mom and dad and is like, this is all a lie.
Oh.
Yeah. Guess what, guys?
You know, speaking of Zhongli and his past and things he regrets, like I actually made a list of all of the things that I know about that he sort of went through during the Archon War, or like the notable ones.
I'm ready for this list.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Okay, so things that he sort of went through during the Archon War. One, of course, the Guili Assembly. That happened where it was Zhongli, Guizhang, Marchosius, aka Guoba, and the Adepti all working together to bring the people of the Guili Plains together and make them prosperous. And when the Archon War was happening during one of those battles, it of course resulted in Guizhong's death. The assembly was sort of destroyed. And then after that, there was a flood that covered the area. And that is when Zhongli gathered all the people and relocated them to what is now Liyue Harbor. And that was 3,700 years ago. So that's when Liyue Harbor was founded, was because of this nasty flood that happened after a big battle that killed Guizhong. The Guili Plains. So we also have, of course, the shrinking of Marchosius, which happened centuries later after that. So Guizhong dies, Zhongli creates Liyue Harbor, and then centuries later is all we know after the 3,700 years ago. So, 3,200 years ago, we don't really know how many centuries. Marchosius is trying to combat all these gods that are still warring in the area and like creating all these calamities and plagues and all this crap that's messing with the people. So he actually transfers his powers into the land itself to hold all of this stuff back. And that's what makes him shrink down into Guoba. And then, of course, Guoba goes into a cave and goes into a long slumber until Zhongling finds him as a little girl.
So cute.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that happened during the Archon War is this battle with some unnamed god in Chenyu Vale that you find out about when you're doing the Chenyu Vale quest line. And this unnamed god in Chenyu Vale was like, I'm going to be the Archon in these here parts. And so...
All right, partner.
This unnamed god is fighting with Zhongli during the war, and then at the end, like realizes that they're probably going to lose, and so their sort of failsafe is they're going to flood the Bishui River to win the fight, and that of course causes her Adepti followers, Fujin and Herblord, to defect against her.
And Bluey.
Yeah, and Bluey, but Bluey wasn't really like caring about the people as much as Fujin and Herblord, so.
That just to add to that too, we know that Fujin, she disappeared and Bluey thought that she was dead. So we know she also went into like this long sleep. And we think the herb person might be Changshang, right?
Yes.
But that's unconfirmed. That's just hopeful theories.
Right. It would make sense for Changsheng to be an Adeptus.
Oh yeah, 100%. A cursed Adeptus at that.
Yeah.
But anyway, other Archon War things? Sorry.
No, you're fine. Other Archon War stuff. Of course, we have Osile in the Guyun Stone Forest. So just as we already talked about, during the war, Zhongli created these massive stone lances that he uses to pin down Osile in the Guyun Stone Forest area. This is actually what creates Guyun Stone Forest. And the reason they did this was Osile was like terrorizing the people of Liyue with whirlpools and tsunamis that were like the size of mountains, which we'll see later on by his wife. So, throwing these massive stone lances down, it creates the Guyun Stone Forest, or at least the remnants of those stone lances are creating that. So if you go to Guyun Stone Forest and you look at it right now, the little jagged things sticking out of the water like that are making like the islands there, those are allegedly what used to be the giant stone lances that are just kind of broken and withering down. Some things to note about that I found really interesting is if you look in the Teyvat travel guide, Alice thinks that the stone lances may have been thrown down to create a specific shape on the ocean surface for some reason. She thinks that like if you're looking at it from the top down, that it was something specific. It almost made me wonder if he created a shape for Celestia to see or something.
It's really just a middle finger.
And that's what it almost sounds like, because she also says, or maybe it was just like a prank or a joke or something, but it's bizarre. And I wish I could tell what the shape was. I looked at it and I was like, I can't figure it out. She also mentions that the quote unquote weirdo at Wangshu Inn, aka Zhao, stares in the direction of Guyun Stone Forest, like at least while she was making the Teyvat travel guide, which makes me think that Zhao, I didn't know when I read this that there were other god remains there, but he's either probably looking that way because of he senses the god remains, or because he knows that Osile is still pinned down there, but below that, because at the time Osile hadn't been brought back up by Childe yet.
Good point.
Oh my god, that's so funny that you say that. Because in my head, I was like, oh, maybe the dead Yakshas who lost their mind were also thrown into the water over there.
Ooh, maybe.
Or maybe he fights a lot of like, you know how he's always fighting like Archon residue and stuff like that. I thought maybe you were gonna say that he's like always over there fighting or something. But I love the idea that he knows that like a storm is a brewing.
Yeah, like maybe he senses Osile still just kind of pinned down there in the water, biding his time.
Or he doesn't trust Alice because she's not of this world.
And she calls him a weirdo.
He's like, fuck you, bitch. I'll eat your dreams.
No, 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 no.
Would Beisht have been like hanging around over there too?
That's a great question.
Well, we don't know for sure, but probably not. Yeah, I'll get into Beisht in just a second. I just wanted to also say about Alice. She also notes that at Guyun Stone Forest, the ley lines there, and this is of course while she's writing the travel guide, that the ley lines there are more dynamic and unstable than other areas. And she actually theorizes, possibly because of the sea monster that's underneath writhing around.
I love the idea that like Osile was locked in a cage down there and Beisht is just there like, do you need anything, honey?
She's like, I'm gonna go out and get you some milk. BRB. And then she disappears. She's like, I brought you some chicken soup. Now she's like having an affair with some other sea monster.
Oh no. Ooh.
Also the famous adventurer Rold, who I believe is in Surumi Island. He has a diary entry about staying at Guyun Stone Forest overnight and dreaming that he was Osile, trapped beneath Zhongli's stone lance and suffering and agony. So apparently Osile could also influence people's dreams, or at least the ley lines that were being affected by Osile could affect people's dreams while he was trapped under there.
Which is very interesting because we know that the ley lines affect memories and hold memories, as we've seen in the 1A story quest. We saw in the summer fun quest, as I like to call it, with D-Luke. We know Albeto's doing research on the ley lines because of the same reasons, and some other things that I can't say right now.
Uh-huh.
But that's very interesting that Alice takes note that there's like a monster and that the ley lines are weird because of it.
So at some point, Osile quote unquote marries Beisht.
I love a jail wedding.
Beisht. And
I kind of make her a little extra Portuguese. Beisht.
So he marries this other sea monster, and for some reason we don't know where Beisht is throughout. Was Beisht around when Osile got pinned down? Did she leave for a while? If Beisht was around when Osile was brought back up by Childe and then defeated again when Ningguang dropped the Jade Chamber on him, she didn't make it known because she wasn't there. You would think that if she was, she would have joined the fight, and that would have been really bad.
Yeah, it took her a while to get her karma, like to come back and be like, revenge is mine.
Yeah, and when she did decide to do that, Beidou found out about it and actually warned Ningguang, like, hey, the hoe is back. And Ningguang, that's sort of what prompted her to create this second Jade Chamber, because she knew that it would infuriate Beisht and lure her out of hiding. So that's when that whole thing goes down. She creates the tsunami that's stopped by Shenhe, and then Traveler and Shenhe go down and battle her, and then she retreats and goes back into hiding.
I love this idea that Beidou was like, ugh, the girlfriend's back, Ning. What are we gonna do? Like, Ningguang, help. She's like, don't worry, I got it. She won't fuck with us.
Yeah, we're gonna rebuild the Jade Chamber. Which makes me wonder she would have rebuilt it if she didn't know that.
I feel like she would have, but just not as quickly. Like, it was definitely a rush project.
Yeah.
Even though it looks great. Like, it doesn't look like a rush project. That's probably thanks to Shenhe.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. So other things during the Archon War, of course, there's the whole thing with the Salt Goddess, Havria. There's this really funny story in his character stories about the sea creature infestation during the Archon War. Did you guys know about this? So during the war, Liyue was infested by these tiny sea creatures who have tentacles that would stay alive after being severed from their bodies and would emit a foul liquid. And these creatures could squeeze through the tiniest cracks. They could squeeze through cracks in doors, windows. They could get into books. They could get into your brushes. They were like constantly like crawling up people's arms.
Terrifying.
Yes, a total nightmare. And Zhongli like had this like really horrible, grueling time, just, this arduous, I don't know how long it took, but chunk of time where he had to go from house to house through the whole of Liyue and like capture and imprison each one by one. I just imagine like a bug infestation. Someone has to go and capture every bug.
And where are those things now?
He imprisoned them within rock, is all it said.
I don't know if I trust that. Someone's gonna go fucking mining and they're gonna open it up.
Right. Like, where are all of these things? Maybe they're in Guyunstone Forest.
Oh no, I hate it there.
But it left such a mark on him that he hates eating seafood that reminds him of it. Unless they're like very finely chopped up. So if it has tentacles, he's like, keep it away from me.
Not a fan of calamari.
Right. That's it. It kind of sounds like it was like squid-like, but I don't know.
I gotta say, I only eat calamari when it's a ring and it doesn't look like squid tentacles. So I get it.
That's really all the things that I had listed that were during the war. Of course, you have the Yakshas after the war. Zhongli makes contracts with them to help fight against all the monsters that were created by the lingering hatred of the dead gods that I'm sure he helped kill. And then, of course, all of those except Zhao eventually succumb to madness due to the poison from the dead gods.
Right.
And we know that Zhao, of course, was doing all of this because he was kind of duty bound to Zhongli after Zhongli rescued him from an evil god during the Archon War.
And can we talk about the Zhao and Zhongli relationship for a second? It's one of my favorite. Yes. It's one of my favorite, like, familial, like, adoptal relationships. Very found family that we have in this game. And this is my thing. I love found family. And it's definitely, like, in my top 5. Because even after this contract kind of goes away, Zhao still feels like he owes something to Zhongli. Even though Zhongli is like, go live your life, bro. And Zhao continues to just look up to Zhongli. Like, there's no one else who could beat Zhongli as, like, top dog in his eyes, even though he did a lot of bad things, because Zhao's like, I also did a lot of bad things. And I think Zhao sees a lot of, like, himself in Zhongli because of that. And he's like, if Zhongli can live a normal life, maybe one day I will. And Zhongli is very focused on trying to help Zhao get a normal life. So whenever Hu Tao, ironically enough, becomes enthralled with Zhao visiting and hanging out, Zhongli very much supports it. And he's like, yeah, come to this dinner. You can hang out with humans who have visions. You can hang out with the traveler, like, make friends. And we've seen Zhao grow since the first Lantern Rite. He has just become such a different person each year.
And we've talked about Zhao sort of being like a war veteran, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always thought Zhao sees Zhongli as his, captain or general or whatever.
And I have this theory, and I don't know how accurate it is. We all know that Zhao almost succumbed to the darkness and the karmatic issue that his brethren succumbed to.
The karmic debt.
Yes, the karmic debt. And we know that he didn't because of Venti. And we also know that Venti and Zhongli are friends. So I've been very curious as to whether or not Zhongli went up to Venti and was like, hey, we're friends, right? Can you help my son? Or if it really just was, like, irony that Venti happened to be the one that helped Zhao out of that situation. Also, Zhongli saved Zhao during the Chasm quest with Yanfei and Yelan when Zhao tries to sacrifice himself to save us all. We also get a fun little flashback that Zhongli is like, you don't have to do this. Just stay outside of the chasm. And Zhao's like, no, I have to go find my friend. And then Zhongli saves him and hints at it to us, but never really outright tells Zhao. And in the last Lantern Rite, this one, we see Zhongli with a kite, which was ridiculous. And Zhao comes over because he thinks it's Hu Tao. So I feel like Zhongli is working. Like, his little dad-isms and him trying to help Zhao through, like, his trauma is working. Like, Zhao went from not hanging out with anyone to only hanging out with the traveler to now he's like, oh, it looks like Hu Tao's here. I'm going to go say hello. And I don't know. It makes me like I'm like a proud dad.
Yeah, it's almost like a parallel of Cloud Retainer and Shenhe.
Yes, and we know that they like must talk because Zhongli and Ga Ming sit next to Shenhe and Cloud Retainer in that
Yeah.
very silly
Oh,
lantern raid
yes.
scene. And we know that Cloud Retainer, despite everything that happened with Guizhong and Streetward Rambler, she definitely still has a big respect for Zhongli. So I'm sure the two of them are like trying to share parenting tips on the DL at all times.
Yeah. I would love that. Would love to see that.
I'm sure it's not good.
Like, well, what's going on with your traumatized child?
Oh, today he did this. Oh, well, today she told me she was going to try meat instead of just plants. Thank God. A lot of people also equate Ganyu as like a kid of Zhongli's, but we know that Ganyu is a kid of Cloud Retainers for sure. So it's like maybe they have joint custody of her.
Yeah.
And Hu Tao, I know we talked a little bit about the consulting work, but like Zhongli and his voice lines about Hu Tao is like, she's a child. Like he kind of seems like he can't stand her.
Yeah, he's like, I cannot deal with that child.
But then he spends every lantern rite hanging out with her, and like in all the little cutscenes when they're like celebrating, the two of them are always like dancing next to each other, except for during her rap. He knew better than to come around for that.
And I did verify the rap was the same year as the dinner.
I hate that so much happened in 1 year.
But it was so much fun.
Yeah, we needed that palate cleanser after the rap. So sorry. So that was during the Archon War, and then I didn't know if y'all wanted to talk about the second story quest, which we basically have an episode on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so the second story quest is about Ajdaha. Tiff is teaching me the way slowly. And Ajdaha, as we know, is a Geodragon. Assumed to not be the original Geodragon, but we're not sure. We do have an entire episode on Ajdaha, I think from earlier this season or last season. I don't really remember. All the seasons have morphed
I think
into
it was
one. Last season. So if you want to check that out and learn a little bit more about that, you can. But quick recap, Ajdaha was underground causing issues and tremors and earthquakes, and Zhongli went to inspect it. This was back in the day. And he was like, oh, hello, and you're a Geodragon, that's cool. And they kind of talked for a little bit. And Zhongli was like, okay, you can hang out with me and you can help defend the people of Liyue Harbor. And he did. And they had this contract. And the whole thing with Ajdaha too is that he was blind. So Zhongli gave him eyes and stuff so he could see. And they lived happily ever after until erosion hit. And then the erosion hit Ajdaha, and he was forced back underground by Zhongli, which was very disappointing for Zhongli. He was very, very upset about that.
Yeah, in Ajdaha, it was like a combination of erosion and humans mining in the chasm and accidentally damaging the ley lines. And Ajdaha was like tied to the ley lines somehow.
His tail looks like one, right?
Yeah, and so whenever they damaged the ley lines in the chasm, it kind of caused him a great pain, and that combined with his erosion made him start hurting people.
And you can tell very much that Zhongli is like upset by it. And in his story quest with Ajdaha, basically these miners go MIA. And while we're looking for the miners, we find a little miner, a child, and not with an E. And the little child
It's like the embodiment of his wrath.
Yes, is like the evil side. And meanwhile, the guy that we've been hanging out with the whole time is actually like the embodiment of the good side of Ajdaha. And so we have a fight, and it's when we unlock the boss battle of Ajdaha as well. It's the worst boss battle ever right off the bat. Won. It is. Come on.
It is. It's
no
terrible.
one likes it.
No.
I mean, I like it more now that I don't need it. Like, I feel like I just kind of have fun with it now, because I'm like, well, if I die, I die. I don't need this shit.
Damn.
I mean, anyway. But Zhongli has this very emotional moment with Ajdaha where he's like, Ajdaha's like, even you are starting to erode Morax. Like, where do we go from here? And it's very sad.
It's very touching.
And then they reseal him.
We know where you go.
Going back up to the surface. Bye.
We just unlock him once a week to fight him now.
Yeah. And he's pissed.
He's not a happy camper.
So this, looking into all of these things that Zhongli has been through, and specifically Ajdaha, how, you know, their big fight that originally happened started in the chasm, and I was like looking at stuff about the chasm, and it made me revisit some chasm lore that I wanted to get into.
Mm-hmm.
So this is mostly about the whole like solar chariot thing, and we talk about that a lot because there's a line somewhere that says that this solar chariot fell from the sky back at the time when Zhongli was young. And we know that Zhongli is over 6,000 years old. So that kind of gives us an idea of when the star fell that created the chasm, like how long ago that was. So volume 6 of this book collection called Records of Jueyun, it talks about the star falling and creating the chasm. And it also says a piece of it broke off on its descent and crashed into Lisha and created what would eventually become the Dunyu ruins, which I never really looked into before now too much. And if you look at Dunyu ruins, it's also a big hole in the ground. And that star that fell into the chasm, it stayed there from the time Zhongli was young. So who knows how long ago that was? 5,000 years? We don't know. Until the Archon War. And it was during the Archon War that it rose back into the sky. But it seems that the Dunyu piece of that star that broke off stayed behind until the Cataclysm. Whatever people were associated with that piece stayed there until the Cataclysm, at which point they sealed their quote unquote ancient city and departed for other lands. Now, stay with me. The Solar Relic artifact from the Vermilion Hereafter set, it tells the same story, but it tells it as a folktale. So they call the star that fell into the chasm, or fell and created the chasm, they call it a solar chariot that fell into a deep gorge. And in their story, this solar chariot was repaired by the mountain people that live nearby. And you know, eventually it returns to its westward cycle. But even after it returned to its westward cycle, a single piece remained behind. And after the mountain people relocated to the city, they would grind that fragment into crystals to sell.
Who are the mountain people?
It's unclear, but it makes it seem like they were like the people that were there before it fell.
I got a question.
So I think this is so interesting because this piece of the star that broke off and created what is now Dunyu ruins, they're saying that that stuck around because we know that during the Cataclysm that they sealed their ancient city. Whoever was in that area sealed their ancient city and departed for other lands. But they stayed behind after the star rose back up into the sky during the Archon War. And there's also, if you look at Dunyu ruins, it has like these big statues that you also see in Kujue Slope or something that has the 9 pillars and that underground vault that has the treasure in it.
You mean the Guishang's tomb?
Well, but I don't think it is because it has those same statues there too. And these big looming statues being underground, I mean, that's also a thing associated with Conria. So my whole theory is that the star that fell was the second who came's palace or base or ship or something. And I think that that fall, like it falls into the chasm, right? It creates the chasm. I think that upside down city, which is like similar to Conria, but more ancient, according to Dainsleif, that was created by whoever was in that star that created the chasm. And the same people, or possibly locals that were influenced by those people, were at Dunyu and created their own little city there.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I think it's like the second who came could be that. And when it fell, like I think it, you know, it was holding the second who came's people, or possibly just people in the area, you know, became followers of the second who came. But that's when the Sealies got banished because one of them married someone from the second who came's palace, you know, or maybe even the second who came, or just one of their people. And then the main chasm star, it rises back up during the Archon War. And if you think about it, the Archon War is allegedly the same time when the second who came and the primordial one decide to work together to take down the third descender. Like that's what creates the Archon War. So if the second who came comes, fights with the primordial one smacks them down to the ground, and it creates the chasm. And then they start like doing their thing, like creating their cities underground. Then during the Archon War, or right before the Archon War, the third descender shows up. That's when, guess what? The star rises back up into the sky. Maybe the primordial one, the second who came, they join forces, they take down the third descender. Meanwhile, like the people that were in that area, I think they sort of either created or inspired the creation of Conria.
Okay.
So that's my big the big theory that I got out of researching this episode.
Do you think that the second who came lived on Celestia? So when it crashed with Celestia? And then that's how, like, Celestia went up into the air. They killed the third descender. They chopped it up into Gnosis. And then they're like, we're going to live up here on our palace and watch over y'all fight over the blood of the third descender.
Well, in my theory, Celestia isn't necessarily the thing that fell into the chasm. It could be, though.
You think it could just be, like, the physical form of the second who came?
No, I'm thinking it's something else. It's like this, whatever the solar chariot, like I think it was just like a big meteorite. Like it's described as a star and as the solar chariot. So, and it's described as being repaired. And I also theorize that whatever technology was behind it being like lighting up was like what was sent down to Enconomia after they sunk. And if you think about Conria imagery, like that symbol on the door to Conria, it kind of looks like a star or a sun.
I mean, so does the clothes that like Clothar is seen wearing.
Yeah, that's that same symbol. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, it would definitely make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Seelie who married someone from the Sun Kingdom, like I just feel like the Sun Kingdom could be the second who came's kingdom. And the Seelies were of the primordial one, so they would see that as a betrayal.
Damn it, Zhongli. Why are you unlocking so much lore?
Just theory, not lore, just theory.
Lore theory. Damn it.
It's so important because we know with Zhongli's age, he's kind of our timeline anchor.
Yes, that is very true.
Because, like, we know, as you've stated, he's roughly around 6,000 years old. And we know he's witnessed all these different events. So we can kind of go through bit by bit of like when it started. The only thing I guess he wouldn't have seen are the dragons.
Yeah, that we know of.
That we know of,
Right.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh boy. I mean, I just wish that Zhongli would talk to us a little more.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be completely honest, I know we see Zhongli a lot, but we don't get a lot of one-on-one time with him.
Yeah.
Besides his story quests, of course. I feel like we have the same amount of alone time with Venti at this point, just because we've had a lot of one-on-one time with him during like wind blooms and things like that. Then we have Zhongli. Like, I feel like they're almost equivalent because Zhongli's never a main proponent in any of these events. He's just like happens to be there.
Yeah.
And so it would be really nice to get a little bit more from him.
You know what's funny about Zhongli is he's so chill and approachable. But if you look at everyone's voice lines about him, it seems like everyone is intimidated to be around him because he seems so smart and worldly and experienced and just knows everything and everyone. So it's interesting because everyone respects him, but it's almost like they respect him so much that they're a little intimidated by him. But, you know, at the same time, he's like perfectly happy to talk to anyone.
You know what's so funny about that? I felt like it was so random that Zhongli was like really into the arts and culture. I mean, it makes sense that he's into history because he lived it. It's really like he's a little more interested in himself than anything else. But he is
Wow.
but he's so appreciative of art and poetry and like theater
And fashion.
and fashion.
Mhm.
Like he was really into it. And so there's like a possible inspiration here of this mythological figure called Zhongli Quan. And he's one of the 8 immortals in the Taoist pantheon. And so Taoism, which can also be called Taoism, is a tradition to indigenous people of China And it's a religion. It really emphasizes like living in harmony with the world, or they call it Tao. And it's supposed to be like a really fun, like transformational process, and you live one with the earth, very much like, Cinnamon last week. But this Zhongli Quan is one of the 8 immortals, and the immortals all had different powers, and they could give them to like other like vessels. And together they were called the Covert 8 Immortals. But this Zhongli is known for having like a really like calm and like welcoming disposition. Whenever there's paintings or drawings found of him, he's usually drinking wine. He's considered the patron of silversmiths in Taoism, which is funny because Zhongli is the Liyue Archon. And it's just like a very interesting comparison. And I'm very interested to see how the 8 immortals play into that, unless the 8 immortals is supposed to be more of a nod to the 7 archons and possibly Celestia or another archon that we don't know of, because I know there's a lot of theories that there are other elements in Teyvat similar to in the Honkai universe. So I would be very interested to see how that goes. And while speaking of inspiration, we have left out one of our favorite fun facts about the Archons, which is that every Archon is in the Ars Goetia somewhere.
Yes.
And so the Ars Goetia is like a demonology book. In Christianity, is it Christianity, Al?
It's part of the Abrahamic religions. It's based off of a couple of different grimoires done from, the 15th century all the way up to the 20th century. So Morax, there's a lot of different rankings in the Ars Goetia, or like the Lesser Key of Solomon is also a good one to go by. But Morax is kind of an interesting character. He's El Presidente of Hell. I've been watching a lot of Jane the Virgin, so
I love Jane the Virgin.
It's like El Presidente, Rogelio de la Vega. And it's noted that Morax teaches astrology, liberal sciences, gives wise familiars, which I'm like, hold up, what? I'm looking a bit more into that of like, does this just mean he says sage advice? Or is he actually giving people different cats? Or like drugs or whatnot. But he also knows the virtues of all herbs and precious stones, which leads into, Zhongli's love of drink, whether it be Osmanthus wine or some good fucking bomb-ass tea or precious stones. And those are what he teaches, but he is kind of symbolized as a man with a bull head or a bull with a man head. It goes back and forth, really depends. And that got me thinking of like, oh, that's probably because he's an earth sign. And why would I think of this? Because Taurus is an earth sign.
Wait, is Zhongli a Taurus? I thought he was a Sag.
He's a Sag, but Morax, the demon, is represented by the bull. And the bull, if we look that to the zodiac, it's Taurus, which is an earth sign. And something I've kind of noticed with almost every single geo is that they are strong, they are kind, they're kind of goofy, a little airheaded. And Zhongli kind of
like totally airheaded, just Ito.
No, I mean, here's the thing.
Well, Noelle's a little.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, as much as I love Goro, he's airheaded too. He doesn't even know who Miss Hina is.
Yeah.
Neither does Kokomi, though. And she's the general.
Kokomi knows.
No, she totally did not know in the Arataki Ito battle bots.
Wait, I thought she did know.
She proved in that event that she has no idea.
Oh.
Yeah, she pulls him aside at the end and she's like, we gotta find Miss Hina. Like,
yeah, because if she knew, she would never be like, let's go figure this out.
Yeah, she's like, when they have their little side story at the end of the Arataki Ito Beetlebot music breakdown, they are talking about the fact that they kind of got caught with like the dog spy network that Watasumi was running with Ayato's group. Like, I was like, whoa. And then they're also like, by the way, we gotta find Miss Hina. You guys are real similar. Like, I think Kokomi's trying to hook them up.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, I really do.
Who was it that was talking to him and like realized it, and he was like, and they were kind of playing along with it, but then they were kind of smirking about it? I thought that was Coco.
I think that was Heizo.
Oh, I thought it might have been Heizo, but
I don't know.
Nico also says something
I'll
about
have to
it.
rewatch it.
Either way, what I mean is Zhongli represents Geo the best because all Geos are patient, are kind, are goofy, and a little dumb sometimes. And like we all are like that.
A little thick.
A little thick, you know?
I don't know about Navia.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Oh,
that's what I was
she's
thinking of. I'm
goofy.
like, I don't know if she really figures into that.
Actually, you know who absolutely proves you wrong is Chiori.
Yes.
God, I forgot Shiori was a thing. She kind of goofy.
Yunjin is very clever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're not smart. I'm saying that they kind of have a specific type thing.
Uh-huh.
Similar characteristics. But then, okay, so come with me on this full journey on why there's so many earth signs. Something I noticed a lot with like going with the Morax parallels, we have a lot of precious stones. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, we got jade chamber. We got gold, which is, you know, a very precious type of stone. It's a metal. It's a singular element. So then I was looking at his constellation, which is Lapis Dai, and it goes from constellation 1, which is rock, the backbone of earth, stone, the cradle of jade, shimmering through the darkness, topaz, unbreakable and fearless, lazuli or whatever the fuck, herald of the order, and chrysos, bounty of the dominator. And in order to understand where I'm going with this, Zhongli knows stone well, and his constellations are taking the most heavily mineral composed rock formations to the singulest, purest element. And what I mean is rock has tons of impurities, tons of different shit going on. Stone is very similar. Jade only has 2 elements. Topaz has 2 elements. Lazuli has 3. And Cryos, which is very funny, it's actually referencing gold. Because 1, it's a minor Greek god who personifies gold. And it is also one of the world's leading manufacturers of Italian gold.
Oh, interesting.
So his 6th constellation is a reference to gold and how each level of constellation refines each mineral into a purer substance. That's my tangent. That's all. Like, they went so hard for this boy.
It's also the representative of their country, you know, like
Yeah,
Liyue
exactly.
is China. So it makes sense too that they would put so much work into Zhongli and what he represents as a whole. Because they're like, this is our baby. This is us. You know, this is us. They have triplets, just like in the TV show.
I can't.
I have a important question.
Okay.
Actually, I have 2 things. So one thing I just wanted to point out, going back to his obsession with contracts, he has a voice line about visions and contracts where he says visions are also a type of contract. You should know that all power comes at a price. For every bit of power you gain, so too do you gain more responsibility. And I thought that was really similar and kind of echoing this concern that Lisa has about visions and the costs of people being granted visions. And she says that she's still waiting for someone to find out the truth about visions. So the fact that you have Zhongli calling them a type of contract is a little scary.
Definitely.
Also, I just have a really important question for everyone. Who do you think actually knows, besides, of course, Venti and Zhao, that Zhongli is a god?
We do.
Well, Childe knows.
Well, yeah, Childe knows. But I mean, like, any of the other, like, regular character.
Well,
Hmm.
Xingqiu is suspicious of him.
Yes, I think so. I wrote down that I think Shenhe, Xingqiu, and Yanfei and Hu Tao are all suspicious.
I gotta say, if Yanfei doesn't know, like, take away her adeptal like label. Like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, girl, like, he's best friends with your mom, basically. You know, like Madame Ping. Like, how do you not know? How has Ping not told you?
Well, what's funny is I think she has a voice line that's more about her dad. where she's like, I asked my dad about him and he said, oh no, he's just a regular guy, but he seemed a little like cagey about it.
Mm.
And so now she wants to dig more into it because isn't her dad where she gets her adeptusness from?
I believe so, yes.
And then Xingqiu says something similar of like, there's something about that guy. I want to do some digging. So Xingqiu and Yanfei, both of their voice lines are kind of like, I want to look a little more into who this person is, which I love. And then Shenhe, of course, is suspicious because of Cloud Retainer. She says that gentleman claims to be a mortal, but is very familiar with my master, who is an adeptus. Master once said, if you see him drinking on a stone stool in front of my abode, do not disturb him. Let him sit quietly for a while. And then Hu Tao says, Zhongli looks young, but his personality is a bit dusty. Knows everything, but doesn't fret over anything. Couldn't be that he's forget it, whatever. So I think she definitely suspects.
Whatever.
Dusty, crusty old man.
I can't wait for her rap about Zhongli.
I wonder if Kazuha knows from his brief stint in Liyue, because the wind talks to him, you know? And he was in Liyue for a little bit. I feel like the wind would tell him the truth about him.
I feel like, though, that would prove that he would know who Venti is.
I mean, there's a chance. They've never really confirmed nor denied after their interaction. But no, I definitely think Xingqiu knows. I agree. I feel like Hu Tao works too closely with him. And she also has too much connection to the border between here and there, you know, like the life-death border, to not have an idea of his like almost immortality as well. And then maybe that's why she's trying to get closer to Zhao. She's like, Zhao, tell me the truth about this consultant I hired.
Maybe Nouvelette knows?
I was going to say maybe Farina knows. Nouvelette definitely knows. He has a voice line about every Archon. He's not happy.
So he definitely knows. All right.
But I do wonder if Farina knows, because you would assume Farina knew who the Archons were when she was a fake one.
Oh, that's a good point.
But I don't think she really cared too much about. She was too worried about herself. I mean, and rightfully so.
But she also met Zhongli in Lanternrite very quickly.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, Nouvelette may have been like, fuck that guy, as they, like, got home.
I feel like we're going to need a wall chart at some point with, like, all the characters, like, with lions going to Zhongli of, like, this color means they know.
This color means they might know.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Venti. Like, we had that same talk when we did our Venti episode. It's like, well, Diluc and Jean definitely know. We think Rosaria might know. There's a chance Kaya knows.
Do you think he'll get outed eventually?
I think they both have to get outed eventually, because there's going to be a huge war.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to come forward. It's also interesting because they're the only hidden Archons. You know, but it makes sense because they're also the oldest. And they're like, yeah, we're done with this.
Right.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Yeah. But on that note, I do think that's all the time we have for today, because we have some more questions from our mail from Kirara, and I want to make sure we have enough time to answer them. So we're going to switch to mail time.
It's our favorite time.
Our favorite time. So our first message comes from Nash. They said, hello, Tales of Teyvat team. I really enjoy listening to your weekly episodes. I haven't listened to the Deha episode yet, but I can't wait to hear your thoughts on her. I especially love your character-focused episodes. On that note, I would love to hear you talk more about Sumeru, since it is my favorite region. I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories on the 6 Darshans, or on some of the characters like Tinyari, Kaveh, or Alhitham. Thank you for brightening up my long drives to my university with your voices. I hope you all have a nice week, and greetings from Germany.
Oh, thank you,
Hi,
Nash.
thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
You will be getting one of those characters very soon. And I would love to do a Darshan episode.
Yeah, I would, simply because I get very confused on the Darshan.
So damn fucking confused.
So I would love to, you know, I mean, granted, I know I could also just learn it, but having a reason.
We're all too busy learning the other episodes.
It'll be nice to learn it, and then actually you guys tell me where I'm wrong. Because I'm going to get it wrong.
I think for me, I always remember the different Darshans based on the people who participate in like the Darshan competition. So I have no idea what their name, but I'm like, all right, I know Sino is Spatamad. I know that Tinyari's the A one. I know Kaveh's the K one. Not very good at this.
Yeah, I only really ever remember Spontamod.
Yes, but I don't know why. Sino's just like sticks out.
Sino and Lisa. I mean, it's the elemental one, so it's like...
That's your thing. Thank you, Nash, for your message. Like
Thank
everyone
you,
said,
Nash.
You're definitely going to get a Sumeru character soon, and we definitely have a few more characters overall lined up for the season. So we're excited. Our next message comes from Kix. They said, Ad Astra, Fiendster B, Al, Tiff, and Vanessa. Shout out to Vanessa.
Vanessa.
Thank you.
Greetings from Belgium. Your podcast is very enjoyable. You guys are fun to listen to, and you enlighten my commute to work every week. I'm Kix, a traveler from day one in Genshin, and I was there before the Unreconciled Stars, and remembered how excited I was as Mona was my first 5-star. Anyway, knowing that the traveler is the shooting star upon which people from Teyvat can make wishes, what does the imprisonment of the traveler by the sustainer of heavenly principles represent? Does she not want the Conrians to be able to wish for another fate because she plans on cursing them? And if the traveler grants wishes for people of the human realm, does our sibling stand for wishes for the void realm? They haven't done the update yet with the new update yet. And they're hoping they'll get some answers through a new interlude Archon Quest similar to the awesome Kari Bear one. Which to this day is still one of their favorites. And then they said, bye, knowledgeable nerds.
Wow. Germany and now Belgium.
Whoa.
Shout out to our European listeners.
Yo.
So first of all, I have never thought of the idea of the traveler being what people are wishing on. Am I interpreting that correctly? Is that what they're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Traveler is the shooting star upon which people from Teyvat can make wishes. I've never understood it like that, but I love that idea.
Yeah.
Because Traveler was that image that you see when we're wishing. I mean, that is what it looks like when Traveler and their sibling descend into Teyvat, right?
Right. I also have never heard of this wish theory, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, that's new. Oh.
It's something I've always wanted to explore because I've always found it, obviously like it's the part of their gacha system. Like they need like a fun little way to like make a wish and like have, your reward come down as a shooting star. It makes sense just technically like from the gameplay perspective. But as we've learned, most of the gameplay stuff still tends to make sense in terms of the lore in this game. So I've never really looked deep into like how they explain like what the wishes exactly are. I've always thought that it was you're wishing to Celestia and that the primordial one or someone in Celestia is like sending down these rewards, but maybe it is like you're wishing on like the traveler is like a conduit of things coming from, whatever pipeline and the stars they came down on.
I like this question of if we represent a wish that the people of Teyvat can wish on, what does us being locked away by the heavenly principles represent? I love to think that the heavenly principles is trying to keep something from the people of Teyvat. Almost like we're like a hero, like Superman comes down from his planet.
Well, because we're a descender and the heavenly principles hates descenders.
We know that when they turn the third one into juices.
Yeah, because she's afraid that we're going to tell the truth of the world to the people.
It's also a curious idea that our sibling might stand for like the wishes of the void realm. So like, the abyssal wishes, which they're definitely trying to make wishes come true down there from all the work they're doing.
Or do you think that like when you're wishing, it's just the traveler tapping into their power from beyond the stars and they're like pulling things in from, elsewhere from other worlds or whatever.
I have no idea if I'm being...
I mean, we know that the fates of all the characters are their constellations, right? So if the traveler is able to make a wish, maybe they're pulling the fate from the fake stars that were created by the primordial one. And that's why like you pull a constellation of a friend. So you're sort of like gaining power for your friend.
Yes, like the traveler has this extra power to help strengthen their comrades.
Right. Because they can somehow pull fates from down off of the fake stars.
But remember, you can only try to get those powers for your friends after you've worked your ass off getting daily commissions.
Fighting Ajdaha over and over again.
Yeah, getting achievements. But no, honestly, Kix and Nash, thank you so much for both of your messages. Kix, you've really got our gears turning now.
Yeah, thank you for that.
We really appreciate both of your letters. And today was like our international day. It was so fun.
Yeah.
But thank you to the travelers who Listen to a lot of zaddy talk today.
Oh, wait, you're talking about the episode?
Not us just talking about you.
If you like this episode and you want to let us know what you thought or what you'd like to see in the future, or if you have any mail you'd like us to read during our cute rah rah mail segment, please feel free to email us at talesoftevatpod@gmail.com. Additionally, you can follow us on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod, or on Twitter, Tales of Teyvat, and you can message in your questions there or reply or comment, whatever you prefer. We love our mail segment. As we said when we started it, it is one of our favorite times of the week. And we love getting to hear from everyone. And don't worry if your question doesn't get answered, we always answer you regardless. That being said, please join us next week as we talk about Taragami and the Curse of Urabashi.
Oh.
Till then, safe journeys, travelers. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Katniss Everdeen nerds.
The
May the
Mockingjay.
odds be ever in your favor.
You know, I mean,
The wishing guy.
they definitely were not in Havria's favor.
No, they were not.
Or my favorite.